The snow had been falling since morning, not the heavy kind that shuts down cities and cancels school, just the quiet, soft kind that covers everything in white and makes the whole world feel like it is holding its breath. James Harlow was 34 years old, a man who ran a company of 300 people, who sat in boardrooms and made decisions that moved millions of dollars. And yet, on this particular Saturday afternoon, he could not say no to a 2-year-old girl in a cream knit hat. That girl was his daughter, Lily. She had her mother's curly blonde hair and her grandmother's stubbornness. And when she looked up at James that morning and said she wanted to go see the Christmas lights downtown, he had put down his laptop, closed his emails, and said yes because that is what you do when you are a single father and your little girl asks you for something simple. You say yes. They had been sitting on a bench in the city square for about 20 minutes, watching the lights blink gold and amber in the shop windows across the street. When Lily tugged at the red scarf around James's neck, she did not say anything at first. She just pulled at the scarf and looked sideways. James followed her eyes. Sitting at the far end of their bench, the same bench, was a young woman. She looked to be about 26 or 27, with long blonde hair that had gone damp from the snow, and she was wearing a gray cardigan that was far too thin for this kind of weather in her arms. Wrapped in a white blanket that had seen better days was a newborn baby. The baby's face was tucked close to the woman's chest, but James could see the tiny white hat on the infant's head, and he could see the woman's arms trembling, not from crying, not from emotion, but from cold, real, dangerous cold. Lily leaned close to James and said in the loud, honest way that only very small children can manage, "Daddy, her baby is freezing." James did not answer right away. He looked at the woman again. She had not looked up at them, yet she was staring down at her baby with the kind of focused stillness that new mothers have, that ancient, exhausted, desperate focus that says, "I am keeping this child alive by sheer force of will." He had seen that look before. He had seen it on his late wife's face when Lily was born, in a warm hospital room with nurses and monitors and heated blankets, and every comfort available. This woman had none of that. She had a bench in the snow. James stood up slowly. He did not want to startle her. He moved around to her side of the bench and crouched down so that he was at her eye level, the way you do when you want someone to know you are not standing over them. "Excuse me," he said gently. She looked up. Her eyes were gray, like winter sky, and they were exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with one bad night of sleep. This was the exhaustion of many hard days stacked on top of each other. He saw a flicker of fear move across her face, that familiar guard that people raise when a stranger approaches them in their most vulnerable moment. He spoke before the guard could close all the way. "My name is James." He nodded toward Lily, who was watching from the bench with enormous, serious eyes. "My daughter noticed your baby, and she asked me to come over. She was worried the little one was cold." The woman looked at Lily. Something in her face shifted. Not much, just a small softening at the corners of her eyes. She said quietly, "We are fine." He did not argue with her. He simply unwound the long red scarf from his own neck, the one Lily had been tugging on just a moment ago, and held it out. "This is clean," he said. He managed a small smile. "It was a gift. I never use it." She looked at the scarf for a long moment. Then she looked down at her baby. The infant made a small sound, not a cry, just a small, helpless breath. And that sound did something to the woman that all of James's careful words had not been able to do. She reached out and took the scarf. She wrapped it around herself and her baby together, tucking it close, and James watched some of the trembling in her arms begin to ease. "Thank you," she said. He nodded. He straightened up and went back to Lily. His daughter was watching him with those serious eyes. "Did you help?" she asked. "Yes, baby," he said. He picked her up and held her close. He helped, but Lily was already looking back at the woman on the bench, and James could see the small wheels turning behind her eyes. That 2-year-old logic that is somehow cleaner and more honest than anything adults manage to think. "Can we give her our hot chocolate?" Lily asked. James looked at the 2 paper cups he had set beside the bench when he stood up, both still warm from the cart around the corner. He picked them both up. He walked back to the woman and set one of the cups gently on the bench beside her. My daughter's idea, he said simply. The woman looked at the cup, then she looked at Lily, who gave a very small, very solemn wave from James's arms. The woman's face broke, not apart, but open. She let out a breath that had probably been held inside her chest for a very long time, and her eyes filled with tears that she blinked back quickly with the practiced discipline of someone who has learned not to cry in public. "My name is Sarah," she said, and that was how it started. James sat back down on the bench. Lily settled in his lap, and over the next 30 minutes, in the quiet way that cold and exhaustion and unexpected kindness sometimes make people honest, Sarah talked. She was 26. The baby in her arms was 11 days old. A girl she had named Clara, the baby's father, was gone. Not dramatically gone, just gone. The way some people go when things get hard quietly and without explanation. Sarah had lost her apartment 6 weeks before Clara was born, when the job she had been counting on fell through and the landlord could not wait another month. She had been staying with a friend, then with a cousin, and then the cousin's situation changed, and Sarah was left with a newborn and 2 bags and nowhere to go. She said all of this without self-pity. She said it the way people state facts when they have moved past the stage of being shocked by their own circumstances and have arrived at the stage of simply managing them. James listened. He did not offer solutions right away. He did not immediately produce a phone or a card or a speech. He just listened, the way people used to listen before everyone was in a hurry. Lily sat very still in his lap. At one point, Clara made a small sound and Sarah adjusted her hold, and Lily reached out one small hand and very gently touched the baby's white hat. "I," Lily said to Clara. Clara's eyes, unfocused and new to the world, moved in the direction of Lily's voice. James felt something move through his chest. Some old feeling he could not name exactly, but that had something to do with witnessing grace in a small and quiet moment. He thought about his own life. He thought about the year after his wife passed, when Lily was 8 months old and he was running on no sleep and no map and no idea how to do any of it. The feeding and the crying and the fear and the loneliness that nobody tells you about. That particular loneliness of being the only adult in a quiet house at 2 in the morning. When a baby is sick, he had gotten through that year because people helped him. His neighbor had brought food twice a week for 3 months without being asked. His sister had flown in and stayed for 6 weeks. His office manager had quietly restructured his calendar without a word. He had been carried by other people's kindness when he had nothing left. He thought about that. Now he cleared his throat. "Sarah," he said, "I am going to suggest something, and I want you to know that you are completely free to say no, and I will not think anything of it if you do." She looked at him with those careful gray eyes. "I know a woman named Margaret who runs a family shelter about 8 blocks from here. It is a real place, clean and safe, with its own medical staff. They have a program for new mothers." He paused. "I can call ahead if you are willing to go. I can take you there myself, if that makes it easier." She was quiet for a moment. James did not push. He let the silence sit. Then she said, "Why are you doing this?" He thought about giving her a polished answer, the kind of answer he might give in a meeting, full of reasoning and logic. Instead, he told her the truth. "Because 3 years ago I was sitting in my daughter's room at 3 in the morning, completely lost, and someone I barely knew showed up at my door with dinner and a kind word." He looked at Sarah steadily, "And I have been waiting ever since for the right moment to pass that forward." Sarah looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at Clara. Then she looked at Lily, who was watching everything with those enormous eyes. "Okay," Sarah said. She said it softly, barely above a whisper. But she said it. James made the call. Margaret answered on the second ring, because Margaret always answered on the second ring, and 30 minutes later they were walking through the doors of the shelter. James carrying one of Sarah's bags, Lily toddling alongside holding Sarah's free hand without being asked, just reaching up and taking it the way children reach for things they decide belong to them. Margaret met them at the door. She was 60 years old, with silver hair and the kind of face that has weathered everything and come out the other side still warm, and she took one look at Sarah and Clara and said, come in. We have been expecting you." As though they had been expected all along, they stayed while Sarah was settled. They stayed while a nurse examined Clara and said she was healthy and warming up. Well, they stayed while Sarah sat in a real chair in a warm room, and finally, finally let herself stop holding everything together quite so tightly when it was time to go, Sarah looked at James from across the room. "Thank you," she said, and those two words held about a year's worth of weight inside them. James nodded. Lily tugged his hand as they walked out into the snow. "Daddy," she said, "yes, baby, is Clara going to be okay?" He looked down at his daughter, at her cream-knit hat and her serious curly-haired face, at this small person who had seen a woman on a bench and simply refused to look away. "Yes," he said. He took her hand. He held it tight. "Clara is going to be okay." They walked home through the snow. The Christmas lights were still blinking gold in the shop windows, and James Harlow, who ran a company of 300 people and sat in boardrooms and made large decisions, thought that the smallest decision he had made all year, standing up from a bench because a 2-year-old girl told him to, was probably the best one. He thought about something his own father used to say. He used to say that most people want to do good. They are just waiting for someone to go first today, he thought. His daughter had gone first. She had been 2 years old, and she had gone first. Some things, he decided, you do not teach children. Some things they are simply born knowing, and your only job as a parent is to make sure the world does not teach them out of it. He squeezed Lily's hand. She squeezed back, and the snow kept falling, soft and quiet, covering everything in white. If this story stayed with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this one, and leave a comment below. Tell us about a moment when a small act of kindness changed everything for you. We read every single one.